Okay, I've been waiting for this since yesterday. It's time to finally find out why Jeff Kaplan left Blizzard.
Originally, the business model was going to be that they were going to do in-person events, and there's going to be big ticket sales and then merch, and all of that. And I think really quickly everybody learned, like, yeah, we can't do in-game events when you have a London team and a Shanghai team, and
Yep.
like, how does this work? So that fell apart super quickly. The merch was good, but it wasn't going to be making NFL level money,
hmm
whatever insanity anybody thought that was going to be.
Yeah, people really overestimated how much Overwatch is popular. I mean, listen, it's a video game at the end of the day, and video games are now just starting to be like really widespread. But at the time, that wasn't really the case. I think Fortnite was the first to kind of break that mold. I mean, first, Fortnite is the first game I've ever heard my parents talking about, and my parents are 70. Okay, so you know that's impressive, but it was the first game to kind of break them. Maybe Minecraft, maybe, but Fortnite was the first big real blowout. Like that was crazy. Overwatch, not even close.
So everybody quickly defaulted back to, hey, didn't Overwatch make like $500 million just in the live game last year?
Damn,
What can we
damn! In 1 year, $500 million. Dude, they wanted more. Oh my god.
sell and what can you give us? That pressure comes onto the team. And then the pressure to ship Overwatch 2 and all
Yeah,
care and love that we had for like the live game and the live let's just make events and new heroes and new maps. We're losing all these resources. Um, and it got to the point, you know, my exit at Blizzard, I believed in Overwatch too. I think we could have made a great I have a lot of hindsight of like how I would have designed that game differently with what I know now versus what ultimately we didn't ship. And I'm not there's Overwatch 2 is out now, but it's not the Overwatch.
no, they reverted it. It's funny. I guess they recorded a podcast before the decision was made to revert it back to just Overwatch. Now they went back and they reverted all the bad decisions they have done with Overwatch 2, and everyone's loved the game again. It's so dumb. It's like they done Overwatch 2 for nothing, because we all know that the only reason for Overwatch 2 existence was strictly monetization. They wanted to change the very generous monetization Overwatch 1 had, I guess you can call it Overwatch 1. And the reason they made Overwatch 2 free to play is because they wanted to cash in on a very predatory monetization system. That is the only reason. Nothing changed for the better. 6v6 turned into 5v5, which nobody liked as far as I'm aware of. I only played Overwatch like the first one, not the second, thank God. And you barely got any new heroes. The only thing you got was like $20 or $30 skins, and that's it. No PvE whatsoever, which was the main promise when they shifted to Overwatch 2. This wasn't live, so it was all lies and obfuscation. It was a Trojan horse. It was strictly for to get more money. That's it.
2 that we planned and announced.
So when you're referring to
Yeah.
Overwatch 2
And by the way, I'm not blaming Jeff for this. I clearly know that this was upper management decision. It's not on him.
in this conversation, you're referring to the PvE version,
The PvE version.
which, by the way, I would have loved to play. I'm one of
Yeah.
the people that were
Yeah,
Overwatch is great.
we
but
all
the
wanted it.
PvP, but I would have loved to play the PvE version.
I think everybody would have loved to have played it. And there's a misconception online that all I cared about was PvE and I didn't care about PvP. All of the Overwatch 2 PvP maps were something that I said to the team over and over. We have a PvP audience. If we get anything right, it has to be the PvP. We would be lucky to welcome these PvE players, but that's not guaranteed. So it was never a
Absolutely.
PvE only focus.
It's just almost expanding it to also the
Yeah.
E.
And what eventually broke me was it used to be like in 2016 and 2017, I felt very in control of the Overwatch team and the direction of the game as a game director, you know, working with Ray Gresco as the production director, it felt like we were running Overwatch.
Mm-hmm.
And we were very, very successful and doing a good job. And I think the fans were happy.
But the evil overlords thought it wasn't enough. Classic. A tale as old as time itself. They always want more, don't they?
And then as we
Insane.
transitioned, you know, Overwatch League was the best intention. You know, my parents always say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That was the Overwatch League, and it ended up being an albatross. And then Overwatch 2 was the same thing.
Yeah.
And
Overwatch League was kind of a mistake. Overwatch was never really meant to be a highly competitive game. So trying to tailor it and cash in on the competitive nature of, like, you know, League of Legends, Dota 2, I guess Counter-Strike as well, they kind of looked at that. It was really a mistake. Since Overwatch was also a first of its time, there wasn't any game like that. Nowadays, obviously, you know, that's not the case. You have Marvel Rivals, and you had, like, Paladins, rest in peace, and all of the game to try to kind of imitate Overwatch. But Overwatch was the first to do so. And to rush in and do, like, a competitive league, that was too much. If it happens naturally, great. But if you're trying to force it and pull investors and all that stuff, that's bound to fail. You need to see if there's a crowd for it at first, and then you just capitalize on that.
and what it boiled
That's
down
the Valve way.
for me, like what sort of ultimately broke me in my Blizzard career was I got called in the CFO's office, and he sits me down and he says,
What?
he gives me a date, which at the time was 2020 and was going to slip to 2021, but at the time it was 2020. And he said, Overwatch has to make in
What?
2020.
What? Dollar, you can't see it. Like, dollar amounts were bleeped to respect Jeff confidentiality agreement with company. So they actually set him on a chair and told him, this game has to make this amount of money, which was probably the most egregious thing in the world. And if that doesn't happen, like, you're screwed? What?
And then every year after that, it needs a recurring revenue.
No way.
And then he says to me, if it doesn't do dollars, we're going to lay off 1,000 people, and that's going to be on you.
What? That's disgusting. Oh my god. Oh my, guys, you see why do I constantly tell you that you don't hate Blizzard enough? This is why. Oh my god. I actually feel so vindicated right now. And I mean, don't get me wrong. We all knew this was happening. We all knew that that was the case. We knew that. It's nothing new. I'm not surprised. I'm just shocked to finally, you know, hear it, right? And from a person who was part of it. Well, you know, obviously not part of, like, the scheme, but, like, part of the entire thing going down. It's just so crazy to hear that. I finally got it confirmed. I knew it. Like, I knew it. We all knew that was the case. It was obvious. It's just so sad to hear it from a person who was involved in this. It's so despicable. And you know, the problem is not even the fact that you asked for a certain amount of money to be made by the game. That's just classic corporate greed. We're kind of used to it, unfortunately. It's the fact that you try to use him as a scapegoat. I was like, oh, this is not my fault. This would be your fault. Screw you. That's the problem. That's what I have issue with. It's so disgusting. And I mean, you know, it's even worse when it comes from people who engaged in so much debauchery. That's the real problem. Like, those greedy, slimy, oh god, like, I don't even, oh man. I don't even have anything to add there. It just, nothing that wouldn't get me banned, at least. It just so, it's revolting, man. It makes me want to hurl. It just, wow. I can't believe what I just heard. To put the man who actually made your game so great, just sit him on a chair, and now you put him in a position of, you have to make me this amount of money or I fire everyone and I put the blame on you. I have no words for this, man. I truly don't. It's just so disgusting. I'm so glad that Blizzard are actually keeping losing money. It's insane. Well, nowadays, after the Microsoft transaction, I believe they're now earning money back. But yeah, during the Activision days, obviously that wasn't the case. That's why Bobby Kotick just sold it to Microsoft and ran away on a golden parachute because he bled the company dry. It was hemorrhaging. It's just so insane to hear. Like, these people truly do not care about video games or anything. They don't care about the consumer. They only care about themselves and making themselves richer and padding their own wallets. It's such a damn shame.
And that was just the biggest fuck you moment I had in my career.
Absolutely.
It felt surreal to be in that condition. And as somebody who's worked on a lot of games, made a lot of games, you get in these meetings where they're like, Fortnite has 1,400 people working on it. If you just hire 1,400 people and make it free to play, we'll make that money, right? And that was, I had believed I would never work anyplace but Blizzard. I loved it. It was a part of who I was.
I mean, yeah, it's so clear that the upper management looked at the current trends and went like, oh, we want to capitalize on that. Like, it's so obvious from the people who can only cube crawl and fridge raid. That's how they think like. They don't care about longevity. Like, they don't. The only thing they care about is short-term investments and money and quick cash. That's why Bobby Kotick escaped on a golden parachute. He just bled the company and just drank it, siphoned every single fund out of it, and just sold it to Microsoft. Just sold the husk. Now, the problem is, I don't really understand why Microsoft isn't making the company any better. That's the part that I don't understand.
And I felt I was a part of it. And I literally thought I would retire from the place. I never thought the day would come. And that was it. I was like, we're done here. Luckily for Blizzard, that CFO is no longer there.
I mean, Blizzard is one of the greatest companies.
They probably replaced him with someone who engaged in the exact same behavior, or possibly even worse.
In the history of Earth, they've created so many incredible video games. It's so difficult to create so many hits, and they were done not by chasing money. They're done by small, incredible teams, the hodgepodge that you describe, taking big risks and falling in love with the thing they do, and then just chasing it, working extremely hard. And just because you figured out a way how to make a lot of money doesn't mean it's not at the core this incredible creative journey that's incredibly difficult to pull off. And just because you got a bunch of really smart, creative people who have somehow figured out how to pull it off multiple times in a row doesn't mean you can just treat it like a machine. Every single time, it's this beautiful journey of a hodgepodge of weirdos working together, and weirdos have to run that thing. If you ever have a chance to create something special, you have to have weirdos at the helm.
Absolutely. 100%. But again, these companies don't care. They want to industrialize everything, and they want to expedite the process of making a video game just so they can earn more money faster. That's it. They don't care about whatever comes after. All they care about is just cashing in quick and disappear. That's everything. And when you understand that, you realize why so many companies nowadays are screwed. That's why Ubisoft are doing all of this garbage. Well, to be fair, Ubisoft can make good games. For some reason, they're choosing to actively not to. But at the same time, they're crumbling, so I don't really care. But the same with Bethesda and all of that. It's not about quality anymore. It's about quantity. They want to pump out the how do you call it, like the crown jewel of their company, like faster, and eventually they're running it dry because all of the good ideas are being spent on like cheap, mediocre garbage. And it's so unfortunate, right? Because we're not getting anything new. The only thing we can get at best is mediocrity. That's it. And we've seen it with Midnight, right? Like, everyone's saying right now that Midnight is not a bad expansion, but it's like, meh. It's not a good expansion. So why people are so happy with this and they're so satisfied? Because that's all they have. They got used to eating crap all of these years, and whenever they get something mediocre, they're like, oh, okay, you know what? At least it's not garbage. And that's what we're getting. We're getting spoon-fed mediocrity. and we're being complacent, and that's really bad. Yeah, and it's so detrimental for the longevity of these video games. But I'm so glad that indie companies are starting to pop up like mushrooms in rain, and we're seeing more and more games that are blowing AAA games out of the water, and I love that.
And the degree to which you don't have weirdos at the helm, creative minds at the helm, and you're a business person at the helm, get out of their way, right? You cannot have the meetings like you're describing. And I don't just speak about this particular company. It's just the entire industry. There's so much joy to be had if we keep creating great games. And I just hope we get to see those great games.
I think there's a message to creative people out there and people who make stuff. We're so focused on the love of the craft that we get lost in it, and we love doing it. And we're not cutthroat, and we don't have that kind of ambition. We have a different kind of ambition. But there's this whole world, especially as soon as you're lucky enough to have success, that are very cutthroat and very ambitious. And for whatever reason, we keep giving ourselves to them. And we need to stop giving ourselves. World of Warcraft.
So basically saying to all competent developers out there who makes video games great, stop working for Blizzard or any other company that takes advantage of you. No, that's a very noble statement, but in reality, this would never happen. Because the gaming industry is so unforgiving and unrelenting, they would just replace you with AI anyway. So developers right now, more than ever, are more inclined to just try and prove themselves and even work for cheaper and do more work and crunch all the time because they want to prove themselves for the future that they would not be replaced by AI. At least that's my opinion. And also, of course, add on top of all of that, that developers and artists and all of these people are super creative and they really want to work in a job that allows them to express themselves. And they're willing to compromise on almost anything as long as they get to do what they love. And I appreciate that because they're chasing their their life work, right? They really want to do that. They're chasing their passion. I appreciate that because I'm kind of doing the same thing, right? I, trying with all of the YouTube content and stuff and hopefully streaming soon. So I can completely get that. But at the same time, it's just unfortunate because they're being taken advantage of by these big companies because they know it's their dream.
When we made it, there was no CFO at Blizzard. You don't need a CFO to make World of Warcraft.
Of course you don't.
You need artists, engineers, designers, producers, and an audio team.
Of course, because if you put a bunch of competent people working on a video game, they can manage. You don't need someone to oversee them like toddlers. It's fine. Maybe you need someone to oversee people if it's a really big project. Sure, 100%, I can see that. But a small scale team will 99% of the times do better than a big one. Like, it just really depends on what you're trying to achieve here.
You don't need to bring in...
And how much time you have and cost and all of that, of course.
And just because you're making a lot of money doesn't mean you need to now start adulting by bringing in
exactly.
a CFO. You can figure it out.
And there are great finance guys. Like, I've worked with finance guys who get it and get out of the way. And
yeah, and that's such a good point because so many people are just putting the blame on the finance guys. Like, no, that's not the case. Now, you need a finance guy, okay? Because developers and designers and directors, they're all super creative, but sometimes they get engulfed in their thoughts so much, they are being detached from reality. So you need the finance guy to be grounded and tell you, hey, listen, we can only afford doing this for that long, and we need to be considerate of the budget, okay? We need to make sure we're doing things right, and we're planning appropriately. That's perfect. That's completely fine. Every company needs that. The problem is when management starts to get involved and they are telling you how much money the game needs to be earning. That's where the real problem starts, and that's where you start losing the game integrity and players.
Respect, and they're gamers, and they sort of understand, but like, I wish developers would understand their own value more and stop handing the golden goose to people who don't deserve it.
Yeah.
How painful was it to say goodbye?
It broke me. I think after you've been at a place like Blizzard, which I love Blizzard to this day. I have nothing but warm, fond memories. I mean, there's those moments where you're like, I wish that hadn't happened. But on the whole, that place is mecca for game development. And everything I have is due to Blizzard. They provided for me and my family, made me the person I am. So separating from Blizzard was one of the most painful things. And I was very sad when I resigned. And I didn't realize how broken I was until recently, like the morning grieving I had gone through of like, I think I'm a little fucked in the head for not being there anymore. How could I give that up? How could I not be there anymore? It was really, really painful.
I can completely understand what he's saying. I mean, even though the Blizzard he left wasn't the Blizzard he came to work in the first place, I completely get it. Because you have so many fond memories of that place and it shaped you into who you are today. And to see the company slowly rot in front of your eyes to the point where you have to leave, it's such a difficult thing. And especially the decision to leave, because you always have that feeling that maybe you could have changed things for the better. But that's not the case, because that's way bigger than you. It's bigger than all of us. It's billionaire people that playing with like gamers and human lives. They don't care about you. They don't care about me, you, anyone else but themselves. They do not care. So he made a right call by leaving, 100%. But I understand why he's so sad. I completely get it.
Leaving.
Can we just speak to, I don't know, I don't think we can give enough love to Blizzard. It's a legendary company.
True.
For me personally, for everybody, for millions of people, created some of the greatest games ever. Warcraft, Starcraft universe, Diablo, WoW, Overwatch. What made it such a...
Notice that these are all old games. Like Blizzard, it just goes to prove that Blizzard are incapable of creating something new anymore. The latest edition is Overwatch, and that was 10 years ago. That's it. They haven't made anything good since then.
Legendary game company. Just looking back at the whole of it.
The start is Mike, Alan, and Frank. It was run by 3 gamers. They were all 3 of them programmers. They made the games before they just ran the company. So they knew what each of us as developers beneath them were going through, and they protected us. They shielded us from all of the nonsense. And even when they would align with a business person, they had a COO in the early days named Paul Sams. And Paul protected us. You know, they found great people who got it. The company, when I joined, was like 95% developers and like 5% operations. When I left, it was, 50-50.
90%
and that's
operations.
Like a 4,500 person company.
Yeah, 50% HR ladies that, do nothing all day and you just working on the game. And that's it. But it's just so frustrating to hear because what he said is so beautiful. Blizzard used to be by gamers for gamers. That's what made the company so good. They knew what we loved. They knew what we needed in our lives. And the same thing goes for their workers. Because they knew how development process works and they understood the mechanism of all of it, they could assess what actions they need to take to make sure their workers feel at ease and they feel like they're being seen. And that's the most integral part of the difference between leadership and being a boss. Being a leader is being part of the crew, but at the helm. And being a boss is just yelling at people and telling them what to do without understanding the mechanism behind it. And that's the difference nowadays. Now Blizzard has bosses. They don't have any leadership. The game clearly lacks any form of leadership, and you see it night and day. Like, difference. It's crazy. You look at all the WoW expansion that came out recently. You look at even like Diablo, okay? Diablo 4 lately had a great expansion, and it's only due to PoE success because they're afraid to losing the entire player base. Even though it doesn't matter, people still play way more PoE. But yeah, Hearthstone lost every single player it had. Nowadays, it's just a monetary fiesta, and that's it. They don't care about anything else. They have like $100 pets in Hearthstone, something like that. I heard it's insane. So clearly, lack of leadership and all of that. It just they're so afraid to even call World of Warcraft Warcraft. It's that bad. And yeah, that's what is so detrimental for the game health, and that's why it's not going to last for long. The reason WoW is still successful is because nobody's willing or capable to make an MMO that even rivals Classic. That's literally the only reason. I truly believe with all of my heart that the moment any company releases an MMO that is slightly better than Classic World of Warcraft, WoW is doomed. I truly believe that. Honestly. Just wait for Riot Games, okay? Trust me, when I play with my grandkids, oh man, this game is going to blow you out of the water.
That love of the games and the respect and good treatment for game developers really turned it into the place that it was. Just the commitment to excellence, the high quality bar, and then finding these passionate people like Chris Metzen or Sam Didier. They were like the visionaries of early Blizzard, Alan Adham, of just these worlds that we're still making and we're still playing in today. Um, it was infectious and it was inspirational. And you wore the Blizzard blue with an esprit de corps. Like you felt proud to be part of it, and you felt like you had made it to be there. And everything you did wanting to respect and honor those who had come before you. I know it sounds almost cheesy saying it that way, but it really had that sense of reverence. Like you knew you were part of something special. You didn't take it for granted.
Yeah, everyone in the gaming industry knew that Blizzard was the pinnacle. If you made it to Blizzard, you were being revered. 100%. I know because I knew a few people that actually tried to accept there. And they've done the tests for World of Warcraft. They had to design like an ability and all of that stuff and to make it like functional. And it was pretty cool. They explained it to me. They weren't accepted, by the way, but it was very cool. Everyone chased that job because it was a dream job at the time. Nowadays, I don't think that's the case, even though I know that jobs at Blizzard are pretty considerate still, like still considered. Sorry, I just brain lag there. They're still considered to be relatively on the high end. At the same time, it's definitely not as it's used to back in the day. Definitely not.
Yeah, that's the sense. Reading everything, that's the sense I got. Everybody that was a part of it. That truly, truly, truly.
I think Riot Games took everyone. I think everyone is now trying to go into Riot Games.
Really honored that time. Just to take a small slice, what were some of the brains? So you mentioned Chris Metzen. You gave so much love to so many people on the team, but I got to ask about Chris Metzen, who I would, by the way, love to do a podcast
Chris
with at some
Metzen
point.
Glaze.
What were the brainstorming sessions with him like? It seems like those are pretty like awesome.
They were the best. Like you could walk into a room. Like the way I would work with Chris is early on when I was more junior, it was just sort of getting creative direction from him. Hey, Chris, I'm about to work on this zone called Westfall. What are your ideas? You know, how could I capture them in gameplay? Well, that won't quite work. How about like this? It was more like that. Later on, like I still remember the first discussion I ever had with Chris about Wrath of the Lich King. I went up to his office, like, hey, we're finally doing it. We're doing the Northrend expansion. You know, what excites you about Northrend? And that's all you had to say. And he would draw a map and he'd start pulling up old like Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 1 manuals and you know showing you like pictures he and Sammy had drawn and like maps
and that's how passionate and understanding the people who worked at Blizzard were. It's insane. Chris Metzen is the GOAT, dude. Like, this man is truly phenomenal. And I know they got him on board these days, but it's not enough. Especially since you have a wine mom that's acting as the VP for World of Warcraft. Like, it would never be enough. You just need more and more people like him to be together, and then you'll have a banger of a product. But one person is just unfortunately not enough.
And all of it, he would just go on
Yeah,
for.
also Chris' understanding of music and how to weave it into the gameplay and immersion is just on a completely different level. Nobody has managed to outdo him. He's phenomenal, truly.
An hour, and then I would sort of digest. I just listen, taking constant notes. I'm photographing his whiteboards all the time, and then I go back and start to put those into design flow of like, okay, what's a zone, what's a dungeon, what could be cool, what should come first, what should come last. You know, Lich King, for example, we wanted to try a very specific design to counter a problem we had in Burning Crusade, which is everybody entered through the dark portal through Hellfire Peninsula. All the server programmers hate you because everybody
Yeah.
loads into the same zone at the same time.
But to be fair, I know that at the time the technology wasn't up to par and couldn't handle that. These days, that's not the case. And having an expansion like TBC where everyone is just waiting, lurking outside a dark portal, waiting to get into the new expansion, and they're all coming at the same time to Hellfire Peninsula is amazing. That feeling was incredible. When I felt it for the first time playing TBC release for the second time, not the release we had just a month ago. Oh my god, it was fantastic. It was a feeling I've never felt before. Watching all of these people at the same exact zone, killing the same mobs over and over again, it was so much fun. It truly made you feel like you were playing an MMORPG. It was magnificent. So if the servers can handle that and you have the technology, I think it's actually fantastic. But spreading people out and kind of giving them agency on where they can choose to go first, that's also great. Like 100%. It's just a matter of preference. I think I love the fact that TBC were everyone like huddled up together. I love that. If there's no technical issues with that, I would rather much like that.
Lich
But
King,
that's
we
just me.
split them up for better player flow. Plus, it's more interesting. The more choice you have, you know, Sid Meier says games are a series of interesting choices.
True.
So
Sid Meier is
you
also
give
the
two
GOAT.
starting zones, but
I love his games.
that was the flow with Chris. And so often we would just like, okay, in that first meeting, Chris had put a zone called Grizzly Hills on the board. Well, I don't know anything about Grizzly Hills.
Mm-hmm. Shame on you.
Hey, Chris, talk about Grizzly Hills. If you didn't interrupt him, he'd just go for an hour and you have no idea how much of it like he had pre-thought about or had existed in previous lore and how much of it he was just making up on the spot. Mm-hmm. He's just that charismatic and captivating.
Creating these worlds and being able to brainstorm through them and together. I mean, that is what you're doing. As a consumer of those worlds, you kind of take it for granted that they're incredible, but like you're crafting them. Like you're looking at a blank sheet of paper and then together coming up.
My job, as I saw it working with Chris, was I had to, on World of Warcraft specifically working with Chris, is I was like the translator into gameplay of what Chris wanted, how to get it to play like how Chris wanted. So my favorite stories, we're working on Burning Crusade, and we're in this meeting, and Chris is like, he's the gentlest, sweetest guy, but because he carries himself with such confidence and everybody's in awe of him, the junior developers get kind of intimidated by him. So we're in this meeting and we're talking about Silver Moon City because we're introducing the Blood Elves. And Chris is like, in Silver Moon City, it's got the tallest fucking tower in all of Azeroth. I mean, it is the tallest thing. You know, it's mind-blowing, the awe of it. Only the Blood Elves could build it.
And I heard they've done a pretty good job at that in Midnight Expansion. I cannot wait to actually see it for myself.
Fast forward like 2 weeks later, I'm walking through the hall, and I see a bunch of level designers and artists. They're all like crowded around the screen. And on the screen, they've dragged Blackrock Mountain and Karazhan and the Stormwind Cathedral. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And they're like, well, Chris said that the Silver Moon Tower had to be the tallest thing in World of Warcraft. Mm-hmm. And so we're measuring how tall all of these other things are so we can make the tower taller. And I'm like, guys, Chris doesn't know how tall the burning steps,
Yeah.
and the cathedral in Stormwind
Yeah.
is. What Chris means is just make the tower really fucking tall. You don't need to measure it. And oh, okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, are you willing to take the heat? I'm like, I'm willing to take the heat on this one, guys.
Yeah. It's just a feeling. It's a
Fair
vibe.
enough.
It's a vibe.
Yeah. And I also just personally have to give all the love in the world for the current Diablo 4 team, because I've spent most
D4?
recently out.
Oh, okay, I think that's it. Yeah, okay. They're stopped talking about the World of Warcraft parts. This is about D4. Well, I mean, oh my god, what an incredible podcast. I mean, this part is about the new game that he was actually working on. I've already seen it, so I'm not gonna cover it here, but you should definitely go over that. I'm gonna leave a link in the description. You guys can watch this incredible podcast for yourself. But god damn, it was so funny to see how much has changed for Blizzard during the years. And it was also so infuriating to watch the reason why Jeff quitted. I mean, what they've done to him, it's despicable. I can't believe they actually did that, but at the same time, I do. Because it's Blizzard. We all knew they operate this way, but we kinda had this small doubt that maybe, I don't know. Nah, I'm trying. Who am I kidding now? We all knew it. It was just so weird to hear it happen, like, from his perspective, because we finally had it confirmed. So now no one can tell me otherwise. I'm actually feel so glad about this podcast simply for that reason. Now, whenever someone tells me, oh, Blizzard isn't greedy, they don't really care, bro, I'll show them this. I'll literally show them this. Okay? They have no proof whatsoever. I do. I have the receipts. So, with as much as it was unfortunate, I'm glad the man seems healthy and he seems to be enjoying life now. I understand that leaving Blizzard was the hardest decision he ever had to make, and completely understandable. Completely understandable. It is unfortunate, but at the same time, I just wish him the best. I really love him. He's a phenomenal creator. He created such an incredible game for us. He was part of it. I mean, obviously he wasn't everyone else. It was an entire group effort, but he was part of it. And of course, Overwatch, all of these games, they were so incredible. I just wish that one day Blizzard would understand the mistake that they're doing and they finally start hiring competent people instead of wine moms and labubu millennials to make our games.